What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and this album I'm talking about is the latest offering from Vicious Rumors, The Devil's Asylum. This also came out on August 29th, this time on Steamhammer Records, and this is the band's 14th studio full-length overall, and shock of all shocks, I know, it should be a freaking sound alert at this point. This is my first time listening to this band, so I've always seen the name come up here and there amongst other people, but I just never listened to them until now. So this is I forget what city they're from, but they are a hybrid, or at least they were described on the archives as like classic heavy metal, power metal, and groove metal, which I would say 2/3 of those are accurate. The classic heavy metal and power metal for sure. Groove metal, maybe very, very, and I mean very sparingly on this album. Like, not much of that really at all. But what I will say is that this album was pretty damn fun for the most part. So we kick things off with Bloodbath, which starts off with killer drums, and right away that evil E-flat guitar tone and tuning. I just always love stuff in that tuning because it just makes everything sound darker and sinister. And right off the rip, big machine gun riffs and D beats that definitely have that like middle ground between classic metal, speed metal, and power metal vibe to it, and awesome high notes on the vocals. Like, the singer here does an excellent job vocally, where it doesn't sound cheesy or nothing. He sounds amazing on here in terms of his entire range. And of course, vocal harmonies, the way they're layered is really cool. Dark melodies, bass noodles, which, why don't I go ahead and talk about both the lead work and the mix on here. Lead work, unbelievable lead work, like great shred, great melody, even harmonized leads, which are very much appreciated. But the production, honestly, the best way I could describe this album production-wise is like the new Halloween, but more polished on the drums, and a little bit of a thicker guitar tone. Like, I think this album's a pretty solid companion to the new Halloween, but just in a different sense. But yeah, right off the rip, you get a great sense of the mix. Like, everything's perfectly mixed together. The bass is audible, even here and there across the board on the entire album. You get like bass noodles or isolated bass parts. But as we keep going on, as far as like the real power metal aspects of this album, you only get just a tiny bit of it. I would say this is more towards classic heavy metal than anything else. Hence why, I'd say this is like 80% classic metal, 20% power metal. But like the two power metal-esque songs on here would be Dogs of War and In Blood We Trust. Dogs of War, it has those power metal harmonies, but there's a lot of like 80s hard rock vibes going on, which I even struggle calling that song power metal in any way, shape, or form. But those harmonies definitely made me think of like Halloween, but also like Iced Earth and Blind Guardian to an extent. But there's even a little bit of chug going on with the guitars. And then as far as In Blood We Trust, like this one kind of alternates between like feeling like power metal and then classic heavy metal, like another awesome drum intro, but it goes right into like a big D-beat stomp with those harmonies. But the riff work for the most part remains more towards classic heavy metal. Now, speaking of classic heavy metal, like I said, it's just all throughout this album. I would say in particular, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden really show up in a big, big way. Like Crack the Sky in Half, that song in particular, as well as Abusement Park, which that's a clever title, both of those songs have definite Judas Priest riffs all over. But I would say Abusement Park, not only do you get like those Priest riffs, but you even get some like Metallica riffs, like big downstroke riffs and machine gun riffs, but you also get a really cool Iron Maiden gallop and bass hook. Even a nice Iron Maiden gallop shows up at the end of the song Butcher's Block, which for the most part, that song, as well as Better Than Me, both of those songs, I get a lot of echoes of Alice in Chains. Big time in the riffs, the rhythm, the evil mood of the songs. But with Butcher's Block, I love how it's like 85% an Alice in Chains song, and then at the very end it turns into Iron Maiden, which was pretty cool. High Hell Hammer, just again like more of those like classic heavy metal, like Iron Maiden gallops and riffs, tons of melody throughout. But then as we keep back going in Abusement Park, like I said, there's just a lot going on there. But Wrong Side of Love, this one brings in, I would argue, a Motorhead influence. Like, it starts off with a bass line, you get like catchy riffs, and I almost pictured in my head, how would this sound if Lemmy did the vocals? I think it would have been a perfect Motorhead song, but the vocals we got on here were great, but I can imagine Lemmy singing this and it would sound like one of the sleaziest songs Motorhead would have ever written. This almost felt like a Motorhead song that was never written, to a degree. But then a track like Boring Day in Hell, which was the longest track of the album at 5.5 minutes, again, you get like big gallops and riffs, and the vocals, I would say across the board, the vocals on here kind of remind me of a hybrid of Warrell Dane, Michael Kiske, and Matt Barlow. Like, I forget the name of the new singer they got for this, but he's got a fantastic voice, and it sounds like the perfect blend of three of the best vocalists in heavy metal history. But the song Better Than Me, I gotta touch back on this one again. Probably the most evil sounding song on the album. Like, there is groove and chug, but it's more of like a sludge chug, like an Alice in Chains song. And of course, like evil melodies and harmonies. But then we get to the closer, the title track, and perfectly encompasses the whole album. Like big machine gun riffs, D beats, classic metal harmonies that felt dark. But I would say it's arguably the most aggressive song on the entire album, I will flat out say. So that pretty much wraps up the album. Honestly, I am hard pressed to find many complaints. I will say maybe the most minor gripe is that some of the songs do kind of, like some of the tracks in particular, I would say Crack the Sky in Half and High Hell Hammer might have been a little bit too similar. Maybe if they could have put like Butcher's Block in between, and even put I would say In Blood We Trust in between Wrong Side of Love and Boring Day in Hell, I think it would have made this album stronger in terms of the flow. But every song was awesome. I was impressed with this. I am honestly going to give this 4.5 out of 5 as well. Man, this has been a strong week for music. Yeah, this was just catchy, fun, old school heavy metal with touches of power metal, little minor touches of groove and sludge, and maybe even bordering on thrash. But man, this was just a fun listen. So I would say if you are a fan of, man, there's a lot, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Alice in Chains, like bands like them in particular, definitely check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.